Today we are joined by Colorado Rockies catcher Tony Wolters. He was originally drafted by the Indians in the third round out of Rancho Buena Vista High School in the 2010 draft. Worked his way up to Double-A with the Indians, but was DFA'd by them in 2016 before the season. The Rockies claimed him shortly thereafter. That's when he and I met up, and he ended up making the team out of spring training that same year. As a catcher, made his MLB debut on April 5th. And other than being optioned one time in 2017, a couple, concussion DL stints, he's pretty much been in the big leagues ever since. So quite a story, and excited to learn a little more about it. Tony, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's backtrack a bit. So back in 2016, you were not a catcher going into that camp, from my understanding, and just kind of got thrown into it, and then all of a sudden you make the team. How did that go?
Yeah, I previously, a year before, the Indians came up to me and were like, hey, we have a lot of infielders. You want to start catching? I was like, it's going to help me get to the big leagues. And started catching, and then got DFA'd, then got picked up by the Rockies. That's right the day before spring training started. I walk into the clubhouse, and I'm like, okay, I need to find out who the pitchers are to meet them. Started introducing myself because I'm a catcher. And I'm starting to realize, I'm like, I think this is the position player locker room, because every single player had a bat in their locker. And I was like, oh, I'm in the National League. The pitchers hit. So I was like, I'm screwed. I don't know how I'm going to find all these pitchers. And then, but after that, I feel like you and a bunch of other guys, took me in and took me under their wing and started introducing myself. But it was kind of a whirlwind, just getting DFA'd and then getting picked up the next day. You get taken off the roster and you're kind of deflated a little bit. Then you get picked up and you're like, oh, new opportunities. And it's definitely a blessing in disguise for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, just to let you know, the reason we have all those bats is because we break them all.
Yeah, those little sinkers. You break a bunch. You probably broken one of my bats.
I didn't swing hard enough to actually break the bat, though. So.
But I think you hit like 500 in the big leagues. I remember a hit.
It's maybe in one season out of two at bats. Actually, that's true, because that's why you're on here. I forgot about that, because we were talking to Hoffman, and I think Nathan asked,
it was like a backup. It was like a backup slider, and you got up the middle.
We gotta go over this. Okay, so I've been at the time. This was 2017. I hadn't swung a bat in at least a year. Okay, so I come into Denver to Coors Field. It's my first at bat. Time. Come up with a runner on third, less than 2 outs, and so I thought it was a fastball. And because I just saw it like, okay, that's close to this one. I'll have a go at that. Hit it up the middle, knocked Hoffman out of the game.
Yep.
And I think you guys ended up winning anyway, but it was kind of one of those back and forth games. And so I go back and look at the video. I was like, oh, damn, that was a slider. So I got to know. Respect. First pitch off. Yes. I love it. But I had no chance at 95.
Well, I feel like we had to give you that respect. I knew it was Colorado. Anything could happen. So, but and I don't know if it was a slider, because it was an 18. Maybe it was. Hoffman didn't throw a slider last year, but maybe it was a slider. But yeah, it was like a front door, like up and in, not spinny slider. I'm like,
right in my basket.
He probably blamed it on me.
He did.
Yeah, because he never shakes.
Yeah, which is why you're here. So anyway, so what was the hardest part of learning how to be a catcher? Was it like the physical stuff, blocking, throwing, receiving, stuff like that, or was it like the mental side, game calling, stuff like that?
It was definitely the mental side, but at the same time, the physical grind of catching is pretty hard too. But I'll tell you this: I've been catching for I think six years maybe, and I'm learning every day. When I go out there, I'm learning something new every day, and it's taught me a lot about the ins and outs of just managing kind of people in general and trying to learn their strengths and applying them into every day when we go out into our office. But it's definitely mentally a grind because you to be a good catcher, you have to be emotionally into the game and being like in the present moment every pitch. And that wasn't hard for me to be involved of every pitch. But the one thing is like taking blame and like it's my fault. Like I still do that to this day. It's like I take everything super personal and I'm like, I'm sorry, like that was me, because I really truly try to be prepared for every game. And I think that was the one thing for me is just the mental aspect of like getting through games. And like when you win a game, it's the best feeling ever. When you lose a game, it sucks because you're the catcher and you put it on yourself. It's like it's your fault. So
Right.
it's I think that's the biggest thing I've learned about catching. And I'm still learning, and I've had a lot of catchers around me that have been helping me through that. And I've been blessed to have some really good guys around me to help me with that.
Yeah, and you now have quite a bit of experience behind the dish since 2016 and in the major leagues at the highest level possible since then. What would you say you take pride in most about your game, behind the dish in particular? Would you say it's your hands on the framing side of things, your blocking, or would you say it's your arm?
I for me, I want to be good at all of them. I
Right.
try to not just pick one. I want to be a good all around catcher. I want to make the pitcher feel very comfortable with just knowing, hey, you could throw a 10-foot breaking ball and I'll block it. It'll be right in front of me. And then if you give me enough time, I'll throw them out. I want the pitcher to feel comfortable enough to be like, all I have to focus on is just doing my delivery and repeating it and execute my pitch. That's all I want him to focus on, because the rest of the game I can do for him. But I want the pitcher to just feel that comfort from the catcher, and I think that goes a long ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned having a special connection with your pitchers at all times, because obviously that's a huge advantage that you have if you have a special connection with your pitcher. What would you say, how long does it usually take for you to adjust to maybe a new pitcher you haven't had experience in the past with, whether that'd be them being newly called up from the minor league systems with the Rockies or newly being traded to the Rockies? How long would you say it takes you to kind of adjust to them, whether that'd be their new arm slot, their breaking ball pitches, whether that would be a changeup, a slider. Obviously, there's not a lot of new break in Colorado compared to other places due to the altitude. How long would you say it takes you to adjust to a pitcher you haven't had experience with in the past?
Yeah, usually I'll look them up and see their video and see where they miss a lot. If I try to find an area like, hey, do they rip their slider a lot, and then I can be prepared for that in my mind.
Right.
And then after that, it's mostly mentally having conversations with them to know what their thought process is. Like if it's like I throw the ball hard, or if it's like a technical, like, oh, I like shaping my pitch with this pitch, and I like curveballs to lefties, and I like sliders for righties, or what their thought process is. But other than that, it's more having conversations off the field. If I can have conversations to see how they're thinking up there, then it makes it a lot easier calling the pitches, because I'll know what they're kind of wanting to execute.
Right.
Yeah, and as a pitcher, there's no better feeling than like when you and I are on the same page. We both see something from a hitter. You're both on the same page, and like I'm thinking the pitch in my mind, and you throw down the fingers. Like,
Cool.
and I got to say, from what I remember too, like you picked up on that really quickly, and so I always felt like, like you said, you're always in tune to the game. You're paying attention. There's nothing worse than as a pitcher, you look in for the sign, you feel like he's guessing when he's throwing down fingers. It's like, dude, you don't even, we're not even close.
Well, that's a cool thing about catching too, because you get that relationship with the pitcher, and then you can kind of start understanding their body language, and you can realize, okay, that was the right finger. He liked that, or he because there's that extra conviction. You need to convince him a little bit to know that, okay, he wanted to throw that fastball down way, and I put it there. He's like, yeah, okay, that's for sure the pitch. I'm going to execute it. It makes the execution way better. But giving that little confidence, even though pitchers are always right? But they're always right. But they need to feel that rightness a little bit more, I think, sometimes.
And we obviously played together with Garneau too, and he
Yeah.
got me. Man, it had to have been most of 5 years straight, something like that. And the one thing he did really well was sometimes I'd shake him, and he'd give me like that look, like you're an idiot. Don't throw that. And he'd put down the sign that I just shook off. And when he did that, it was like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I've seen him do that a lot. I like that. He's very convicted and he's really prepared. I like how Garneau pitches.
Is there one pitcher in particular here in Colorado for the Colorado Rockies pitching staff as a whole that you maybe feel most comfortable catching, or is there not really one that sticks out more than the others?
I think I've had a lot of these guys for a while, so I'm pretty comfortable with a lot of them. I think one guy that's pretty tricky though is Bard. He's pretty hard to pick
Okay.
up, and his pitches are pretty nasty. He was like Ottavino type pitcher, and he's one guy I'm still trying to get used to because he always wants to do new things. He wants to do front door stuff. He wants to pattern his pitches. He wants to, he wants to do different things. So I have to kind of keep my conversation with him. I think the biggest thing, like I said, is that conversation off the field, after games, okay, this is what I like. This is what I didn't like. That's where growth happens. I think more growth happens off the field than on the field. Because then when you get on the field, you're like, okay, I remember that conversation we had, and then that's what we're going to do for this game. Or he picks a couple of hitters that we talked about before the game. I'm like, ooh, this is perfect. We just had a conversation about this. We know how we're going to attack them. So, that preparation definitely calms the nerves when you're back there, and it makes you slow the game down even more to where you're on the same page with the pitcher.
Yeah, and you mentioned Daniel Bard. I want to talk a little bit about him and his incredible story. He actually, faced a severe case of the yips, retired, and then came back to win NL Comeback Player of the Year here in 2020. What were your thoughts on him here in this 2020 season and, his approach on the bump here in this 2020 season to make that, amazing comeback that he did?
Yeah, he has a really good routine, a really good head on his shoulders, and he works really hard. He's a good leader, and I've learned a lot from him, and I think I've had some really good conversations with him, and he helped our bullpen a lot. Like I said, he's a very good leader, and I'm really proud of what he did this year and how he came back from, all the adversity that's kind of hit for him.
Right.
That's pretty incredible and pretty cool. Pretty special story, and I don't see him going down. I see him keep getting better and better, and and I'm happy for him and his family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to touch up on a little bit regarding your pregame routine because I think it's a very interesting thing. I've heard a lot of pitchers give me their perspectives as far as what they do in their pregame routines. I want to hear, your side and what you do pregame to, get ready for a major league game when you're catching someone like, maybe Kyle Freeland or Jeff Hoffman this past season. What does your pregame routine look like?
Yeah, usually I'll sit at my locker and I'll watch their previous game, the pitcher that I'm catching. I'll usually watch his previous game right before the game where I've watched it before, but I'll like to watch it again and just see things because that's what the hitters are usually seeing a little bit. And then I'll go into the weight room and start stretching out, rolling out, getting warmed up, get on the bike, and then I'll walk out to the field and I'll usually use our bullpen catcher, and he'll throw me baseballs for receiving, and then he'll give me some pick throws, he'll give me some block throws, and then I'll kind of toss with them for a little bit and get warmed up that way. And then I'll just stretch a little bit until the pitcher's warm. And I like playing catch with the pitcher just to make sure he's kind of locked in before the game too, just to see how his catch play is, and then we'll go in the bullpen. And usually I kind of slowly get into my squat a little bit, kind of start stretching while he's like kind of getting warmed up, and then I'll start kind of using the tempo I want to use for the game and using it on the pitcher to get him used to that tempo. And then other than that, that's kind of my routine. I kind of keep it simple. I usually have my headphones on in the locker room, listen to music. Sometimes I listen to podcasts. But other than that, I kind of keep it simple, relax, look over my notes a little bit before I go out. But my nickname is Papers because I'm
Just
not,
gonna
and
bring that up.
it's still papers. It's usually they wanted to start calling me iPad because they're kind of switching from papers to iPad, but
The
I'm still
digital.
having him print out papers for me, but my locker is a mess. Like it's really nice with like everything's hung up and everything, but there's scatter reports all over my locker, and so I feel bad when I'm not prepared, so I over prepare, and I have papers all over my locker. At the end of the year, I have a huge recycling bin full of papers.
It was Para that came up with that, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, because
Yep.
Tony he'd be walking around the locker room, from the kitchen or something, and just like paper just everywhere.
Took you a while to clean up that locker.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah, at the end of the years, I dread at the end of the years trying to clean up my locker. That's for sure. That's funny.
Do you have any crazy superstitions or anything like that you maybe do pregame or postgame to maybe stay on track to what you're doing during the season?
Usually, like if I feel good hitting or doing something defensively, like I'll try to keep my sliders. I wear like a slider, my jock strap, and then slider over it to keep it locked in. And so I have different kind of sliders. I'll wear different colors. So like I'll do like a purple slider on with my jock and a white. And if I do good, I'm gonna wear the same kind of setup for the next game. So usually I kind of ride it out until I don't have a good game, and I'll mix it up. And that's how I kind of throughout the whole season, I'm kind of constantly mixing my slider setup. That's kind of weird. I'm actually listening to myself right now.
That's
I know
funny.
I'm weird. You can ask any of my teammates. They all think I'm weird.
Well, do you remember your when we flew to Miami in 2016? Your costume?
Oh yes.
What was it?
We gotta pull that up. I think it's on my Instagram.
Oh. Yeah, that was
Best
bad.
costume by far. We had Miami
It
Vice
was.
going to Miami, and Tony didn't quite get it, but it was hilarious.
I'll put a picture up when I'm editing this.
Yeah, we got.
That's funny.
Well, I want to turn it back
Good
to 2018 to the wild card series against the Cubs. Top of the 13th, 1-1 score. You had that clutch single with 2 strikes on you, 2 outs. Like I mentioned, the top of the 13th against the Cubs in that clutch of a game. What was your approach during that AB, and in particular having 2 strikes on you down in the count?
Oh man, I was so nervous. I was really nervous. And I knew I was gonna get changeups going into that at bat, and my goal was to just hit the ball, put it in play, not strike out. I got close on the dish, got up in the box a little bit. I was definitely how the noise at Wrigley is like the sound. The speakers feel like they're right there from the dugout, blasting into your ears. It's so loud, and then you have the crowd noise, and you feel vibrations going on in your legs. So I'm like, I'm up there. He throws the nasty. I thought it was a fastball. It wasn't. It was a changeup that like bounced like in front of the plate. Strike one. I'm like, oh my goodness, I couldn't even see that. And then second pitch, another changeup. I think he went like fast, or he did like a fastball, and then he did another changeup where his changeups weren't getting better; they were getting worse. So he kind of did me a little favor for the last one and left it up a little bit. I hit up the middle. And I didn't really know what happened. I was like, okay, did someone score? And then I started figuring out, I was like, okay, someone scored. Yes. And I figured it out. And I was like looking at the dugout, and that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had because I didn't know what truly was going on. I was so like in a different world. My whole body was going through vibrations, and I saw the guys, they're all happy. And it was a pretty cool experience. And I definitely can still feel that feeling as I'm talking about it right now, but it's definitely an experience where you have to. It's like, have you been on like one of those vibration boards where what are they called? What are they called? They're like it helps you stretch out.
Yeah, God, I can't remember the name. I know what you're talking about though. You
But
can like change the
that's
frequency and stuff.
yes,
Yeah.
that's what it feels like. That's what it felt like when I was up to bat. I really felt like the ground was like vibrating while I was up to bat, and I was like in a different world, and I couldn't even feel the bat. Like I hit the ball, I started running. I could barely run right. I was like, it felt different. Everything felt different, but it was pretty cool.
Would you say that was quote unquote your clutchest moment in your career thus far? Or was there maybe one that was clutcher at the time while you were in high school?
I think at that moment in my career, yeah, for sure. Like in my big league career, hitting that single was my biggest moment, for sure.
Okay.
That's pretty tough to beat too.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Not too many situations that are, you know, higher stakes than that. So that's pretty awesome.
No, that was definitely cool. I was getting put in the 13th. That was pretty crazy. I got ready like 4 or 5 times that game. I thought I was getting put in the 4th inning, and then the 6th inning, and then I kept getting ready. I kept getting stretched out, and it was just like nerve-wracking because you're just down underneath now in the weight room. You're just watching TV while you're rolling out and just getting ready. You're staying ready. And so it's just like you're put in, you're going to get put in, and then you're not. And then I remember I got put in, and I forgot my chest protector. I put my shin guards on, got my helmet. I forgot my chest protector running up the stairs. And I see the teammates look at me in the dugout like, you're putting this guy in? Like, he's freaking out. Like, he doesn't even have a chest protector going on in the game. Like, I was like,
all right, you don't need it. How often do you use it?
Yeah, exactly, right? But it was a pretty cool experience, that's for sure.
And I'm sure in that big of a game like that wasn't just a normal game. I'm sure it's that much more nerve-wracking in that big of a game. How do you kind of keep your cool and, you know, stay cool under pressure during a moment like that?
I think a lot has to do with, like, you know, like when you're little, you're visualizing yourself in the big clutch games and stuff like that. You know, I think this thing is during the day, I try to visualize myself in kind of scenarios during the game. Like, okay, we have a 6:40 game, visualize myself under the lights and me catching a ball or making a play at home or getting a double in the gap, visualizing myself doing it before it even happens. I think that helps me keeping my breath, you know, making sure I'm doing my belly breathing in there and focusing, just kind of, and that kind of distracts my mind from wandering, just making me locked in more. I think those 2 things are my biggest things that help me in those kind of situations.
Yeah,
a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah, I want to add on to that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, to wrap it up, we always ask one question. What's something that people might not know about you or suspect about you? Could be, you know, baseball related or not. It's usually not, but, you know, anything like that.
One thing people don't know about me, I think I really like cooking. I think that's one thing that I'm very interested. I won't say this. I won't say that I'm a really good cook right now.
Yeah.
But I know that, like, I think I am, but I'm not the best. I know that. But like barbecuing, smoking things, I like look at recipes. I'm like, I can do that. Like, I'm going to do that and I'm going to make it really good. And I get really self-conscious about, okay, did you like that? Like, that's one thing I'm very passionate about is cooking and being really good at it. So I think, like, in the future, I'm going to try to be something like that or be just really good at cooking.
Yeah. Well, if you need me to try some of your stuff, just let me know.
Perfect. I'm killer. There
we go. All right. Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for chatting with us. A lot of really good stuff. And yeah,
appreciate you guys.
Yeah, enjoy the off season, and we'll be in touch again soon.
Dude, thank you. I appreciate it, Christian. Nathan, thank you. It was nice meeting you. And I appreciate you guys having me on this. Very cool. Cool what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Tony.
Take care.